This is a prequel novel, which tells the story of how Hannah's mother started her antique store. There are two big problems with this premise. Number one, nobody cares. Number two, we already know how the business got started. That was book number 3. The joke ending to book 3 is Mother announcing her new antique business right next to Hannah's bakery. Well, this book completely ignores the events of Book 3 and makes up a brand new story for how the antique store started. Because who cares about continuity? Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review. A homeless man shows up at Hannah's bakery. She instantly likes him because he is so polite and he won't stop complimenting her food. That's the way to Hannah's heart. Mother shows up. She is extra nasty in this book. She complains at length about how terrible it is that Hannah has the same hair as her dad. Why can't Hannah have nice hair like her sisters do? Mother worries it could be her fault that she had such an ugly child. And she's saying this all to Hannah's face. Mother is a jerk. Hannah's wearing her normal bakery clothes, jeans and a sweater. Mother refuses to be seen in public with her. I can't be seen with somebody dressed like that, so she forces Hannah to change her clothes. Merry Christmas to you too, Mother. Mother is such a smooth talker, she can convince Hannah to do anything. We're told that's because Mother is a master negotiator, but I disagree. I think Mother is a selfish manipulator who takes advantage of the fact that Hannah is weak-willed. Mother wastes no time in getting Hannah to agree to move heavy furniture, bake 6 dozen cupcakes for free, and be the one who uses the unsafe ladder to decorate the top of the hospital's Christmas tree. While decorating, Hannah has happy memories of playing with her father during Christmas. The phrase, "he had died several years ago," appears twice in the opening paragraph. Lisa's cousin Rachel shares a special cupcake recipe. This one is extra special. It was made by Kraft Heinz specifically for this book. I was surprised to learn this book has a corporate sponsor. Granted, they only made one of the 27 recipes in this book, but still, maybe in the future, every recipe in the Hannah Swensen books will be made by a food company. Recipes make up at least a third of every book in the series, so that would save the author a lot of time. Mother's antique shed is covered with snow because of a hole in the roof. Instead of fixing the hole, she decides it would be easier to rent a building in town to store antiques. A real estate agent gives them the key to an unused property. It's dark there, so Hannah teaches Mother and Carrie how to use the flashlight app on their phones. That's another continuity issue. Hannah is good with her modern phone, but this book is set before modern phones existed. She had a flip phone in the early books, and Hannah's well established as a technophobe. So, double continuity error. They find the homeless man lying unconscious in the store. They rush him to the hospital so Doc Knight can take care of him. More continuity problems! The author has forgotten that Doc and Mother were not married when this book takes place. Their relationship was not even on the radar. But he still acts like they're a couple. This includes openly touching her, calling her cutesy nicknames, and buying champagne for her on their dinner date. Yeah, that's kind of harassment there, Doc. The entire group goes out to dinner. They try Sally's new recipe, which leads to a long discussion about sugar plums, which is revisited in the following chapter when Hannah makes sugar plum cookies. Doc says the homeless man has lost his memory due to traumatic brain injury. They're calling him Joe Smith for now. Mike says the police can't investigate since there's no evidence of any crime. Gee, you'd think a severe brain injury would be cause for suspecting crime, but I guess not. Joe is pleasant at the hospital, and Hannah prepares food for a family dinner. She notes the original recipe says to leave out the nuts because Uncle Harry has false teeth. She repeats this joke in the actual recipe. Jokes aren't as funny when you tell them twice in a row, Hannah. Not that I'm one to talk. Haven't I already made 5 continuity jokes in this review so far? Speaking of which, the introduction says this is Hannah's first missing persons case. That places it before the novella Candy for Christmas, set between books 1 and 2. But as I said at the start of this review, this actually takes place during book 3. How can it be in book 3, but before book 2? Continuity! Hannah has a 3-page nightmare when her cat takes over her pillow. When Mother and Andrea visit Hannah at work, Hannah gets up to answer the door, because there is a saying that says trouble comes in threes, meaning there must be a third person who will visit Hannah this morning. Her rational mind tells her she can't admit the truth to her family members, so she struggles to think of a less offensive explanation of why she stood up to answer an empty door. Is it just me, or is this entire scenario extremely weird? Hannah's suspicious mind and her rational mind occasionally talk to her in this book. It's not as bad as last book, where the culprit confrontation was interrupted by Hannah's suspicious mind arguing with her rational mind, but it's still pretty odd to act like the main character has multiple brains. Andrea joins the investigation because she's got a lot of free time now that somebody else is watching baby Tracy. Tracy was not a baby during book 3. Continuity! Hannah and Andrea spend 3.5 pages talking about converting temperatures from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Andrea doesn't even know what Fahrenheit is. Why doesn't she know that? That's the temperature she's used her entire life, but she's more familiar with Celsius? It's dumb. Well, they meet Joe at the hospital. He has remembered quite a bit. He lives on a dairy farm. He and his teenage brother Donnie own a furniture refurbishing business. They live in a town with Lake in the name. Hannah and Andrea agree that is not enough information for them to locate where Joe lives. It's not enough information? Are you serious? It can't be that tough to locate a specialty business when you know the names of both owners and part of the town name. I checked the internet. Unless Google is wrong about this, there are only 3 furniture refurbishment places in Minnesota outside of the major cities. So that is not a search which would take them very long. But no, Hannah and Andrea whine, there are so many towns in Minnesota named after lakes, it will be impossible to find the right one. In the mandatory cat subplot, Hannah's cat knocks cans off of a shelf. Hannah thinks, oh no, there's a robber in the condo, and she's scared for pages upon pages until she realizes it's just her cat. This chapter is immediately followed by a chapter where Hannah retells the story of her cat to Mike and Norman. Because it's such a fun story, readers obviously will want to read it twice in a row. Off-screen, Mother buys the antique store and hires Joe to fix her antiques. That feels a bit like a slap in the face to readers. The whole point of the book is to learn how Mother got her antique store, and it turns out she bought it when nobody else was looking. Joe helps Hannah with catering. At a party, Irma's Aunt Carolyn recognizes Joe as the son of her husband's parents' next-door neighbors. Aunt Carolyn can't remember exactly where that was, though. No one thinks of the obvious solution to the problem, which is to ask her husband directly. He probably knows where his parents lived. Inspiration strikes Hannah when she makes cupcakes. Joe says that his mother used oranges when making German chocolate cake. Hannah goes to the library and searches every single cookbook ever published in Minnesota until she finds that recipe. It annoys me that Hannah thinks it's too much work to check 3 furniture stores, but it's not too much work to check every cookbook ever. Also, Hannah is pretty lucky this cookbook plan worked. The mystery would have gone unsolved if Joe's mom had been using somebody else's cake recipe, like everyone does. It also would have gone unsolved if she hadn't published her recipe in a local cookbook. What percentage of the population makes up recipes and publishes them in cookbooks? That's got to be a really tiny percentage, right? Well, the only German chocolate cake recipe with oranges published in Minnesota is from Sweetwater Lake Township. That must be where Joe is from. They take him there and his memory returns. It turns out that Joe's evil stepbrother Jake tried to kill him months ago in order to marry Joe's girlfriend Sarah. The wedding is happening right now! They stop the wedding in time, Jake is arrested, and Sarah marries Joe instead. Norman and Hannah stand up for them at the wedding. Mother is shocked that Hannah would be at the altar of a church in jeans and a sweater. Change your clothes, Hannah. The end. Post-book follow-up. There is no murder in Christmas Cupcake Murder. They need to change the book's title. The book summary is quite inaccurate. Michelle's not in the book. That's not how you spell Michelle, anyway. Lisa needs no advice. Mother has no Christmas secrets, and there's no deadly puzzle to determine Joe's identity. The book probably would have been better if those were real storylines. This is the third prequel novel since Ross Drama took over the series 5 years ago, starting with book 18. I wonder if the author is unhappy with the Ross stuff, and that's why she's writing so many prequels. She's deliberately avoiding Ross by setting her stories long before he moved to town. Like books 20 and 23, the pages are smaller than normal. This feels like a trick to hide the fact that it is a shorter than normal book for the series. The conversations were more repetitive than usual. For example, Hannah talks to Joe for a chapter, then spends a chapter telling Andrea what she just learned, then spends another chapter repeating this information to Mother. It was not interesting enough to read 3 times. I found this book more tolerable than usual because I skipped ahead whenever they started talking about food. That makes the book go way faster. If they mention food, skip to the end of the chapter. You're not going to miss anything. People who read this series for the recipes were disappointed with this book. 6 of the recipes contain cake mix as an ingredient. The Hannah Swensen from earlier books would be horrified at the thought of using cake mix instead of baking from scratch. For the past several books, Hannah has been obsessed with recognizing everyone from the way they knock on her door. She explains this every time someone comes to visit her, which is often enough that it is super annoying. Nobody cares that Mother knocks more quickly than Andrea does. Why does everybody come in through the back door anyway? She owns a cookie store. Come in through the front. Overall, the book wasn't good. There are lots of continuity errors because the book's supposed to take place during book 3, but the author did not bother to try to make it fit that time. The mystery is mostly ignored in favor of food, and they ignore several ways to solve the mystery sooner. There's no reason this Christmas-themed book couldn't have happened at any other time of year. I guess I only have nasty things to say about this book. I'm sorry. This was not a very nice review. And it's not a very good book. I give Hannah Swensen number 26, Christmas Cupcake Murder, a 1 out of 10.